Well, we are live here. Let me just check my levels, and we will get off to the races here. This is a special mid-season a mid-season review, I suppose, for lack of a better terminology. This I am first off. Let me set the table here. I am ML Mike of ApeIt.Ink. That's my personal website, like where I do politics, opinion, current events, pretty much anything I find cool or I want to talk about. But on the lighter side of media and life, I have a co-host named Tom, and we do a weekly show called the Last, the Nerdom. This is primarily for that, but it bleeds into, it kind of balances between both. And I won't bury the lead too much here, but basically, Tom and I have our own show, and I can get into the plugging of the details just so you know who I am. Not that guy, but our stuff. This is my website, ApeIt.Ink. Again, mention I'm also on Twitter, ML at ApeIt_Ink. Also on YouTube. This is my private channel that I flow a lot of the ApeIt stuff. And personal stuff. I don't quite know where to put it. That I might change it, but I do. My gamer tag for a couple decades now has been SofaKingJewish. And then this is my Yats. I believe the kids use something called Linktree. Well, I just have to be cooler than that. Not really. And I found this and whatever. Anyway, it's pretty cool. SofaKingJewish. Anyway, it has links for where me and Tom are at. And then lastly, kind of rolling into the thing, you can talk to Tom and reach me also via, if you want to discuss the first, the last, the Nerdom type things on Twitter. He is head up of that. Also, this is our primary channel, like where this is going out to. Check out Tom's recent review about this comic book here. Very good, very good. I haven't got a chance to watch my partner's what he put out, but I look forward to looking at that a little bit later today. But in any case, we like to put out things here randomly, sometimes on not so randomly, I suppose, but we don't really have a schedule for these things. It's going out live. And lastly, you can find us to find Tom representing us on Reddit. If you're a Redditor, good for you. As you can see, my account, or actually, I didn't even think my account is banned. I have no idea what that is. But anyway, not to bury the lead too much, but we have had this show out here for a while. And I'll just kind of keep up the thing here so we can kind of roll through it here. This is live. I do thank you so much for joining me. If you could give me, it costs you nothing. It's free. If you give me a like, subscribe would be great, either on my SofaKingJewish channel on Twitter, or whether that's the FirstLastNerdom on Twitter, or also on our YouTube, would be greatly appreciated. Maybe you could find over the more than 200 videos that we have on the FirstLastNerdom. But anyway, we like to cover nerddom things that are nerdom. We don't really get into the opinion, culture wars type thing of that sort of thing. But there's been so much dialogue, so much talk about this show, The Acolyte. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I put out a parody video on my private channel, or on my personal channel, not private, personal channel. I made a short making fun of Amandla Stenberg's music video that was interesting. Anyway, it got a lot of traction, so I figure I would dive in. And this isn't quite the first or the last of the Acolyte. Sometimes we play into that theme, but it is the middle, so to speak. Just a tick past middle. So we just episode 5 dropped this week, and I wanted to cover it. I have been loosely covering this privately. And I talked to Tom a little bit, and I said, hey, I think I want to do a video on this, just to kind of recap and kind of go through some of the things and what this show is and what it means for the future and some of my observations therein. I would love to see this grow and see the discussion. The vast majority of people watching this show, for the most part, it is not very well received. Now, that doesn't mean that it isn't good. Maybe it's good to you. Maybe it's not. You can't really say that if the whole thing sucks until the whole thing comes out, and then you can judge it accordingly, of course, like any rational person, right? So I wanted to sneak in here on a Thursday morning. I hope you have a great day. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So what is The Acolyte? The Acolyte is a Disney Plus original series set in the Star Wars universe, set specifically during the High Republic era, approximately about 100 years before the events of, excuse me, I'm reading this off of my pre-prepared script here. Apologize. But anyway, the show follows, it's 100 years before the Phantom Menace, during the High Republic, the very end of the High Republic, and that crescendoed into the Phantom Menace in the prequels, etc. If you're not familiar with the prequels, hopefully you will be after this. But the show follows a respected Jedi Master investigating a series of crimes that bring him into contact with a former Padawan, a learner, and revealing potentially very evil forces at play. This is where we find ourselves mid-season. I won't go through, I'm not going to recap the entire season, but episode 5 had pretty much all the important cool action, the very iconic Star Wars lightsaber fights, Jedi, you had Sith, and we'll get into that. And preface this, if you have not seen anything up to this point, this video is going to be chock full of spoilers. So at the very top, before I ruin it for anybody else, it is nothing but spoilers after this point. So nope out if you want to see it, if you care to. Although I see other people like to, they don't want to watch it, they don't want to touch it because they don't like it, which is fine. But you have been summarily warned, as it were. So we find the main characters are Amandla Stenberg, Osha, and May. They're twins. She plays both. And she was known for her roles in the last Hunger Games, and everything. Let's see here. Lee Jungjai, Lee Jungjai, excuse me, apologize. That is Jedi Master Soul. He is the main, that's the Jedi that I was talking about before when I gave the roll up here of what the synopsis of what the Acolyte is. He is known for his breakout role in Squid Games on Netflix, which we actually covered. I will try to put that in the show notes after the fact, because we did cover the Squid Games. That's like, I think, first or second episode that we decided to do from almost 3 years ago. So we had been doing this YouTube thing for a while. That was very fun, cool series, very splatter gore kind of thing. Either way, it's good for consuming that sort of media on Netflix, and I believe it's still around. You also had Manny Jacinto as Chimere. I'll call him Chimere. Hopefully that's not wrong. Great actor. So is Lee Jungjai. Amandla Stenberg, I think she can act, but it gets real repetitive real quick, and I don't think she quite has the chops to pull off the playing twins, in my opinion. It looks like she's talking to herself when you actually see specific scenes between Osha and May. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not saying that she doesn't have talent. She obviously does. And we also have others who were not in this particular episode. And I'm gearing and boiling this all down to just the tight scope on episode 5 for the Acolyte. Everything up to this point, there are other people, but they've all. Episode 5 is where everybody drops. The bodies start dropping, in Star Wars fashion, and it can only be done like Star Wars can do. Jodie Turner-Smith as Mother Anesia, something like that. She is known for her roles in Queen and Slim and Anne Boleyn. We have also Margarita Lavica Correll as Correll. These are the parents of Osha and May, where they were there. We don't quite know the mechanics of it, but some are contend that it's lore breaking, canon breaking, whatever. Who knows? Whatever. But regardless, this is the story that's in front of us. So they have these two twins that were born purely from the Force to these two mothers, Coril and Anesia. Excuse me. Mother Anesia, which is the lead of the leader of the space coven of witches. Some give them the tag of lesbian witches. They're all female. It's all matriarchal. So you can make your own logical conclusions. Of course, they're going to have that in their culture, society, story, whatever. Anyway, let's get on to the themes. And I did want to give these actors and actresses their due. because you know what, even if you don't like the Acolyte, they still put their time and effort in, and there are people on this show who deserve to go on and do awesome, have more opportunities. Hopefully, if this Acolyte is just a crash train wreck, which it seems to be boiling up to be, but we'll get into that a little bit. There's definitely a split in the Nerdom for this, but we see up to episode 5, the Acolyte explores themes of power, loyalty, and blurred lines between good and evil. The series jumps into the complexities of the Jedi Order and the consequences of their actions, particularly in the High Republic era. It touches on that a little bit, although I think that's a little bit more monumental than what we've seen thus far. We have yet to kind of see like where the Jedi Council comes in and the bigger overall impact, the ripples from this show. And of course, we won't get that until we get the final download for episodes 6, 7, and 8, which are playing now on Disney Plus. So if you do that or get it by other means, is what it is. So we definitely have the Acolyte has absolutely, nobody can deny that it hasn't set the table for this kind of gray area zone that we find ourselves. I think it's a little bit more blunter than most Star Wars, where it kind of beats you over the head and kind of tells you with the exposition what's going on and whose part is to play with this. It reads kind of like a it reads like a, I don't want to say a bad soap opera, but one that is not terribly grounded either. And we this is the episode 5 is the one that has been tagged as like the fun one, the one where we finally get to action and adventure and typical Star Wars light stick action or lightsaber action. But I will go into my personal thoughts and I don't hide this on my sleeve. I don't really necessarily enjoy this per se. This is more an analytic type thing. I definitely have my thoughts and feelings on it. But I am not a diehard Star Wars fan, and we're going to come back to this a little bit later to the very end of this video, where I'll give you some counter opinions to folks that do enjoy the show for a multitude of different reasons. Now, I haven't really heard true praise that this is the greatest Star Wars show ever. I have not heard that be said, and I try to have a very well-rounded chattering class, so to speak, that's not on one end or the other, because I still like to be open to things, because you just never know, like when, even if God knows I'm a rabid science fiction fan, that is my number one priority through all this entertainment. Star Wars, for lack of a better term, you would be insane to try to divorce Star Wars from science fiction, good or bad or otherwise, it doesn't matter. It is for a long time, for decades and generations, it was the premier science fiction thing. Nobody talked about anything other than science fiction, but for Star Wars for a very long time. I'm sure there's Star Trek, but you have to give credit where due. However, this show is a rat's nest of canon, legend, expanded universe lore. We're not quite sure how it will land, but thus far, the main Sith revealed is one of 3 things, in my opinion. And I'm being tongue-in-cheek here and a little bit joking. And if you don't like that, that is what it is. I'm not outright making fun of this, just small little cuts a little bit on the side, because some of it doesn't really make sense, but we'll get into that later. I'm just trying to focus on the parts that are more interesting and relevant to speaking and engagement. Chimere was revealed, and they did not hide this fact that he was the big baddie. He is the one who is putting May in the position of seeking revenge on these group of Jedi, which is the murder mystery that kind of wasn't very well defined in the show, because they're all over the place. They have no consistency with that, where the rule of law is, where the Jedi fit into that. Thus far, it looks like the Jedi are Keystone cops, somewhat incompetent, to thoroughly incompetent. It just it's all over the place. This is why I say it's a rat's nest of lore breaks, canon breaks, legend breaks, But Chimere is the Sith. He is the Sith. He reveals himself to be a Sith. He has the moniker of Smilo Gren, or the one that Smilo Ren, excuse me. The other one that I heard was Kylo Gren. So the fans are kind of having fun with it. So he's either a Sith, and a Sith, a Master Sith. He's either an apprentice, or he's a dark trans Jedi. So he went to the bad side. Because up to this point, the only thing that we had in the lore or canon, as far as people were concerned and deep level fans, were the fact that for 1,000 years the Sith hadn't been seen in this era. So this is 100 years before we definitely had Palpatine and Darth Vader and the start of that. So it's kind of confusing when we bring in this thing of this is Sith. So we're still on the edge. We don't know yet if he is truly Sith or not, or just a dark trans Jedi that got confused and just wants to whatever. The only thing really interesting about this rat's maze is if Disney Star Wars would attempt to connect this thing to the other parts of Disney's Star Wars universe. We have come to learn about and know, meaning the modern version. So my main issue with Disney at the very top, and I don't hide this, it's not that it breaks canon or lore or breaks my heart. They already broke my heart a long time ago when they pretty much removed the expanded universe and all the preceding novels, decades and years of novels up to that point. Disney had every right to do that. They turned that off and then they went in their own direction. They have begged, borrowed, and stolen from that universe and called it Legends. So some things like Thrawn went on to become adopted into Clone Wars and Ahsoka, etc. But the problem that I have is we keep getting these pocket universe, these pocket stories, what I like to call cul-de-sac stories, meaning they're off on their own in their own little pocket dimension, little pocket universe, little cul-de-sac, and they don't go anywhere. They're just circular in nature. They don't connect back up to the bigger, broader storyline and push it forward. I've heard good criticism on many sides. One of them is that people love Star Wars, but they want to get away from the Skywalker legacy. Some people do, some people don't. That is just a fact. So that's already kind of a natural, I would say it's not a huge dividing line per se that I've seen thus far, but we have these pocket stories, these cul-de-sacs, like where a story is told, like Andor, which is widely regarded as probably one of the best Star Wars, original Disney Star Wars, I should say, series that it has punch and vigor and is interesting and has drama and has very gritty aspect of it. It has nothing to do with the Skywalkers or any of that stuff. It is just its own. I did see headlines that said that it was up to season 2, I believe. Which is fine. I didn't personally watch it because I really just don't have any time to invest in a pocket story or pocket universe just to know that these people are all dead, and it doesn't really push the needle forward for the overall universe. If it was connective tissue, maybe they will do something with that. I don't know. But thus far, what I've seen, it's just not happening. It's just not really happening. It's not invigorating. It's not exciting. It's not something that I'm interested in. To watch and see. It has nothing to do with the quality of the show or the love or hate of it. I just don't find that interesting. I noped out around season 2 of Mandalorian, but I kind of turned my eye and like watched from a distance. Now I have seen 3, 4, and 5. I didn't bother with episode 1 and 2 because I had consumed so many breakdowns, both good, positive, and negative. I already knew what was happening in the episode very well, probably a little bit more than you would ever get from watching it, actually. But this is one thing is for sure. People are watching and paying attention to this. Maybe not the original reasons why Disney made this, what they were originally aiming for. They were, of course, hoping to placate the fans and then create a big, massive hit and then kind of let it sprawl out and become its own weather system. We're not quite done yet, but it definitely hasn't done that. It has its own weather system, but not for the reasons what Disney wants. It is definitely being talked about. At the end of episode 5, though, we are left with a twisted mess of lightsaber fights and differential power scaling, which makes no sense. And what I mean by that, if you're a nerd, doesn't matter if you're in this Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, if you are a proper nerd at some point in your life, you have done this thing like where you do a kind of a fun, lighthearted question like Superman versus, Superman versus, that's Superman's DC. So who would he be? Maybe Captain Marvel. I don't know. I'm just making it up, right? So you'd have, or the Hulk, something like that. Who would win in a fight? So we have these different kind of things, and it's really fun as a fan, even if you don't like the Acolyte, to kind of see these power scaling things and the differential here. Well, we had this very wacky and off base things. People are a master in title, but they seem to be a master Jedi in title only, or Sith. I don't know. We don't quite know yet. And it just, it's very interesting from the standpoint of, you have Kymar here who just waxes everyone and then kind of slows down, and they have to kind of let the plot catch up and not let them get all the wins. And in typical Disney fashion, you know, the making no sense part, we're left with the typical Disney Star Wars tropes, which are half steps and lead to more confusion. That's probably the biggest gripe that I have about modern Disney. They'll take a half step, they won't take a full step to kind of level the playing field. I think they desperately want to get there, but for some reason we're not quite there yet, and we're stuck with this stuff. There's also too much of it on screen, and too much of it is not good enough quality for it to justify, which is why we're kind of at a breaking point with people in Star Wars. Whether you like the Acolyte or not, that's what we're up to this point. I have a quote from Yoda, a made up quote of Yoda: "Confused you are. You will absolutely be confused after watching this if you have any kind of a background with Star Wars and understand any of this stuff." They pulled in lore. I like that they pulled in lore. There's some kind of metal apparently in the Legends universe, or expanded universe, something like that, to like where it disrupts a lightsaber, and it kind of, not forever, just for temporary, which was seen, which is great. But I don't know. But despite my views on this and past shows, which most were uninteresting or outright failures, the rest have captivated the faithful to a certain degree. Rebels, Clone Wars, Ahsoka. For now, we'll have to wait and see where the Acolyte falls on the scale after the fact. I think I kind of already know, kind of have a general impression. But with all that being said, Leslie Headland was the showrunner who created this. But there's some caveats to this. It doesn't look like Leslie Headland is going to stick around in the Star Wars or the Disney empire. Maybe she'll do something more. But she recently was at the beginning of June, I think. There was a story that I found on Deadline where she signs with a new agency to represent her. So it's not all. I don't. Maybe that's just a normal career thing. But in any case, we kind of leaping from the show to who created the show. Basically this development, it raises more questions than answers about the future of the Acolyte, Headland's involvement. Maybe there's another contract that is outside of her agreement with her overall employment with Disney. I don't know. We won't know until we see that. That's a little bit of the inside baseball. It's kind of interesting sometimes. We don't know if there's going to be season 2. Probably not. I don't know. This season reportedly took like 4 years and was like $180 million to make. Those are all facts of the show. I'll be honest with you, we don't really see it. Not in the quality or what we've seen this part. Like I said, it's a rat's nest. You start here and you end up back behind yourself. It's very circular, and it's hard. It's hard to see the direction of any potential future seasons of the Acolyte. The overall creative vision, if it was not well received, how can you salvage that? Especially when it comes to Headland, and it looks like she's moving on to greener pastures. And Disney's approach to selecting creators for future Star Wars is very, very they'll bring these new people in that have very little to no experience in science fiction, let alone Star Wars. And then they'll give them this tremendous budget. And at some point you'd think you would see like a breakout hit or a breakout thing. But it hasn't happened quite like they want yet. And when I say breakout, I mean beyond the normal Star Wars fans, whether they're old guard or the new guard, to the normies. If it doesn't resonate with the normies, they're not going to buzz about it, and they're not going to talk about it. And of course, honestly, social media is great for advertising. We know that that's the future, but it is not the end all be all of this thing. Because it's really word of mouth. It's when you go talk to your friend, your mom, your cousin, your brother, your sister, your kids, even if they're older. you pay attention. If somebody says, hey, this is really good, you should watch it, people tend to do that. That is not happening with any Disney kind of show. But so they have a problem there, and that's kind of a bigger overarching thing in the background. But as viewers, we need to keep an eye on how these behind the scenes changes might influence the content that we get. I will be very excited, even though I don't necessarily like the Acolyte. I will be ecstatic to see the health of a Disney show, Star Wars show, even if it sucks, to see it have connective tissue onto something, not just with itself. So we don't quite know yet, but I'm hoping that they can connect the dots and like connect it to something else, and then maybe we'll get something more out of it. I don't know. It's just speculation. I don't want to speculate because that'd be way too wild, and I'm not into that show, into the show that much. But I can put on my nerd hat and do the the fun, have the fun conversations. That's what this is an attempt at. I'll put it that way. We just need to keep an eye on it. This also kind of goes into the other thing. Like normally, like when people watch a science fiction show or any other show, really any other genre or a movie, they don't want to be reminded of the real world, right? Sometimes it's appropriate and sometimes it's not. Of course, Disney I think the biggest thing that people miss is Disney is an entertainment company. They have lobbyists and things, but those are for the business side of the house. And occasionally, unfortunately, like a lawnmower chewing up dog poop and making a bigger mess in the lawn. They got caught up in culture wars inadvertently or directly, indirectly. We have very famous queer creators. Leslie Headland is a lesbian. Her wife is also in the show. I didn't mention her. I should have. I will at the very end here. But there are also Amandla Stenberg is also she's also known to be a lesbian, these are all great things. Good for them. Normally these wouldn't have a big impact, and who cares? But this show, there was a scene, an interview with Amandla Stenberg and Leslie Headland, and I think that it got kind of taken out the wrong way. But the primary issue is that you have this it was like maybe 2 minutes, 2-minute question, like where the Entertainment Tonight asked them questions on the premiere of the Acolyte, and somebody mentioned something about it being the gayest Star Wars show ever, or gay Star Wars or whatever, which is fine. I think it was meant to be lighthearted and kind of like from one fan to another, kind of like a lighthearted thing. It was not taken like that. It was taken a little bit more seriously than that, I think. But nonetheless, there were headlines that said the Acolyte is the gayest Star Wars ever. This kind of rolls into the thing like where Disney has this very, very bad habit of attacking the fans before a show starts, or they put the actor or actress out all by their own without seemingly any support, it looks like, from the outside in, and they kind of just let them flounder there. Are there nasty people out there that say things that are very, very mean and uncouth? Absolutely. But are they in tremendous hordes of people that do this? I don't think so. Not everyone out there is a racist, a bigot, or a whatever. Some people don't really care. Most people don't even care if you're gay or not, or whatever, or if the show is gay or not, whatever. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, it's bad. That's just the thing of it. But we can't deny that Disney was going for something on the PR side, where the topic kind of came up. They control those interviews like crazy. That was all part of the Access Media, the whole thing. Like when they do a premiere, it's all softball questions anyway, because the point is it's not about them or the creator or the actor. It's about the show and premiering and promoting that. That's all it is. It's just PR. But when you deploy, when you have a premiere of a tentpole show for this year for Disney Star Wars, you premiere it in June, which is Pride Month, very huge month in the United States and Europe and other places, not just us, but in many parts of the world, like where you actually have freedom. The premiered during the very first part of June. So June is known as Pride Month. So this thing of it being gay, and we have this gay creator, and we have this lesbian actress. It's going to be a big deal. They should celebrate that. But the there was some backtracking here, and I think this is where when Disney, Star Wars, or Disney period gets into the culture wars. I think what I've seen on the LGBTQ plus 2SL whatever group of folks, they get mad. They get very, very mad because Disney kind of tips a toe in that water, but they don't fully defend it. I've seen criticism of that. But on the other side, you have all the other traditional types, like, mom and dad, kids, true fans, whatever. And they're more normal people. Not to say that gay isn't normal, because it is. We all have our quirks and whatever. But you have other folks that are saying, why are you promoting this as being gay or lesbian or Why is that? And they have been ridiculed. Disney's been ridiculed in the Acolyte because of the lesbian space witches, which is certainly funny. And it is what it is. But they have these folks that are like, it's okay to be gay and to show and strong gay representation, queer representation, on the big screen, on the small screen. Give us a good story. Give us a good story. Don't put the identity of the actor, actress, creator, whatever, at the forefront and pretend that is quality. That has no bearing on anything related to anything up to this point. But unfortunately, it is what it is, and we get that. So there were also some headlines that, like, kind of where they're doing some PR damage control, like where Leslie Headland was basically rolling it back and being like, yes, it's queer, but it's not queer with a capital Q. So this kind of middle of the road mixing between one side or the other isn't helping Disney at all. And it is what they just get more wrapped up in the wires. And you definitely had Amanda Stenberg. She put out a music video over Juneteenth last Wednesday, about a week ago. Attempting to it was really bad. Attempting to kind of defend and kind of push their thing. Didn't make any sense. It is what it is. But you kind of have this culture wars morass, like where we can't get out of this trap of talking about this or that, when really none of it is true at all. People don't hate this show because it has gay people in it. They also don't hate this show because somebody Black or Asian people are in it. Nobody thinks like that. Not really. Not across the waves of society and civilization. Nobody really thinks like that. And if you do think like that, you're not watching this. You're watching something way different. Why would you be online and pick a fight with somebody? Nobody does that. So that's a false narrative from Disney. And stop attacking the fans. Stop attacking us. We don't like it. Nobody likes it. But having said that, I do want to the statement from Headland, adds that doesn't believe that it's purposely queer. That was from Hollywood Reporter, and I'll put that in the show notes as well. But the Acolyte is the gayest Star Wars that was reported by the Wrap and many others. It does raise questions. There's this thing about DEI and inclusion and diversity and all that. That's not really the issue. It's the issue of give us good storylines, give us good coherent things, give us once in a while. Not every creator or actor has to be familiar with the Star Wars lore up to that point. That's ridiculous. But you got to be at least somewhat. You got to have some kind of foundation if you're going to make something beyond the appeal of new fans alone, or old fans, or let alone normies. Nobody's going to come into the Star Wars and do a bunch of homework. Only nerds do that. And there's not enough of us to support something like that anyway. Especially when we get such waves of differential quality from Disney. But I did want to kind of roll this up. We're getting toward the end here. No one can deny that this series was released on purpose during Pride Month, which was pretty much leaves us where the actual series has dragged us into utter confusion and dissatisfaction, no matter who you are. Never really taking a stand one way or the other. I kind of covered that. Dear viewer, what are your thoughts on this? And with that, I will play myself out, and I will recommend here. I didn't really use this at all, but these are some of the notes here on Star Wars. These will be included. You can see it now on Disney Plus. This is kind of the big thing that people are getting up in arms about, the fact that it's 14% versus critically acclaimed, like the real critics. Somewhere the truth is probably somewhere in between. But the other thing is that if people see this and this equal, I'm not going near this. Most people, they don't care. They're not even going to see it. And I will say, here are five YouTubers that do like the Acolyte in one way or another. Some maybe not all the way like it, but they'll give a very good balls and strikes type review of it. So it's not tinged with alt-right or right or left-leaning or this or that or whatever you want to call it. Damien Walter, this guy is a sci-fi guy. He is in depth. He covers a lot of the great science fiction novels that will never make it to the big screen, that I hold near and dear. I don't always like his opinion, but you know what? That's the thing. It's an opinion. You move on. He definitely does like Acolyte. So, and he has some valid criticism around it too, but he is a good source. And I always say with Tom, I always say, if you can find a good YouTuber, a good YouTube channel that is really good quality, but they're young. And when I say young or they're small is probably a better word, young in their YouTube journey, they'll have under 100,000 subs, under 1 million subs, all the way up to 1 million. Doesn't mean that if you get 1 million subs that you don't put out good content. That's not true at all. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, if you can find some of these YouTube channels, they may not pay off right away, but they'll make something that's interesting that causes you to subscribe to them to see what they'll bring tomorrow, next week, next year, etc. This guy is one of them. Is Stupendous Wave. He is also a fan of the show. I just broke my rule here with the thing. I thought he had less than that. But in any case, I followed him a long time. He is a very good Star Wars lore canon, technical nerd kind of thing. He'll go in and out of like the vehicles and the equipment, whatever. I followed him for years. I believe that they like it, but even they have problems with this particular show. EckhartsLadder, same thing. I subscribe to these guys with like when they were like not this big. So they've grown quite a bit over the years, probably at least over the last 10 years, 10 years, if not longer. EckhartsLadder also, he gives a very nuanced take on Star Wars and that sort of thing. And even these guys have nothing to do with the other side of the fence or pushing a political agenda or that sort of thing. And there's nothing wrong with having your opinion and having it bleed into everything you do. Who cares? But these guys are like a little bit more neutral, a little bit more nuanced. Greg Owen, I like him because he gives kind of a dad take. He's a little bit more sour on modern Disney, but he has no problem. If Disney makes a good kiddos show, he'll tell you. He will tell you. And it's a very good, well-rounded appearance for normies, that sort of thing. That's what I like about him. Also another one, MetaNerdz lore. MetaNerdz also has been covering Star Wars thing. I think it's a little bit more nuanced take, that sort of thing. Like when he goes into this stuff. Definitely all those channels will be out there for you to check out. And I think I'm on just about done. This went a little bit longer than I intended, but I just wanted to get it in first thing this morning before things got really serious. But in any case, maybe you like it, maybe you don't. This is kind of a little bit more of an experiment for me on the FirstLastNerdom side. Anything that will cause you to go check something out, whether it's positive or negative stir or conflict or whatever. Hopefully next time this happens, we'll get a little bit more positive direction for Disney Star Wars or whatever. If something isn't likable, so to speak. But I do know one thing. The show didn't maybe achieve its Disney's monetary financial aim for popularity, but it damn sure is pushing the needle forward for like what it means to be a Jedi, maybe Sith. As silly and stupid as it is shown on screen, there still might be something there to work with. That's my hope. But of course, it is what it is. You like what you like. And if you don't like my take, good. Tell me why. Tell me why. And I think that's where we'll end. Again, you can find me on ApeIt.Ink. I will be doing something with the debate tonight on the political side of the house, if you care for that. If not, whatever. Also on Twitter. Definitely a lot more opinionated on there. Same thing for my my show. Go check out my short making fun of Mandela Stenberg's awful music video. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. Of course, my yacht, SofaKingJewish. You can find me all my links there. And of course, go find Tom on the First Lesson Nerdom. Tom is definitely a lover of Clone Wars and Rebels and Ahsoka. Awesome. We just don't really cover that on our show because we didn't really want to. We really kind of cover more obscure, more cult classic, deep cut kind of things, whether it's horror or sci-fi or comic books, that sort of thing. But this is a little bit more kind of a take to kind of jump on the Star Wars wave, so to speak, of the Acolyte for all the talk out there. What is this thing about? And kind of dip in my toe in the speculation. Of course, our YouTube channel, as always, we 202 videos. Will be 203 by the time this is out. And then this is our Reddit. So please like, comment, subscribe. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think. It would be great to hear true believers' opinions on this show. Are you watching it? Are you not watching it? Are you going to binge watch it? Who do you follow on YouTube to get your sci-fi or nerd thing on? I've definitely come into contact with a lot more channels over the course of that. Not personally, but just watching them, consuming as just a normal YouTube fan. But it's very interesting where we're going. And I look forward to seeing you guys out there and seeing what you think.